order the regular meeting of the June 6, 2017 regular meeting of the Chino Valley Planning and Zoning Commission. Julie, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're a little bit out of sync here tonight because we're missing some of the staff from the town. So I'm going to go ahead and do the roll call. Okay, Commissioner Wuffen?
Van Wuffen, yes,
Van
I'm here.
Wuffen, sorry.
It's okay.
Commissioner Welker?
I'm here.
Claude Baker?
Here.
Commissioner Bacon?
Here.
Commissioner Armstrong?
Here.
Vice Chair Pasiak?
Here.
And Chair Merritt when I'm here. So we've completed the roll call. Item 4 is consideration and possible action to approve the minutes from the May 2nd, 2017 regular meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at it? Any questions or issues? I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to accept the minutes as printed and presented, please.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 5 on the agenda is staff reports. So we would look to Alex to give us a staff report this evening.
She's trying. Cecilia's trying to find him. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Good evening, Commissioner. Sorry, I'm a little bit confused. Staff report for today?
Yes, on the item, there's an agenda item here for staff reports that's usually provided by the town planner or the assistant planner. And if there's no staff reports, then you can just tell me that.
I believe there's nothing in the agenda for staff report.
Okay.
Am I looking in the wrong section? or-
Nope, I think if there's no staff report, there's no staff report.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Moving forward to item 6A, consideration of possible action regarding a proposal for a zone change from existing CLSR1, which is commercial light, single-family residential 1 acre minimum, to CLSR1 with a planned area development overlay and the approval of a development plan for parcel 306-18011N and parcel 306-18011P. Alex, can you brief us on this, please?
Commissioner Merritt, before I start with this approval for this applicant, I would like to do a brief presentation of based on both projects being somewhat similar. I want to cover some ideas or some other developments that these two developers have the desire to reflect something similar in their proposed sites. Would that be okay?
I think that would be fine.
So, just really brief, both Mr. Fletcher and Mr. Larson, their proposals are somewhat reflectful of two other projects that are completely developed around this area. It's something that is within this area, and it's something that has the same demographics. Both of these projects are proposals for retirement communities consisting of park model homes. And the first example that I would like to speak to you about is Orchard Ranch, which is located in between Dewey and I think Chino Valley. Sorry, Prescott Valley. Orchard Ranch is a retirement community. It's an active retirement community. It consists of RV lots and park model rental units. Some of the recreational facilities and amenities that it provides, they have a swimming pool, they have tennis courts or pickleball courts, they have putting greens, exercise room, and a rec hall. The area around it looks, so these are just some pictures of Orchard Ranch and the amenities that they provide, or the recreational activities that they provide on site. This is an aerial view of what Orchard Ranch looks like. The surrounding area, most of it is vacant land. To the right of it there's communities as well.
This is the village at Lakes Creek there.
That's 69, that's Fane.
This is the newest development. This is where.
I'm not exactly sure how many units Orchard Ranch consists of. I tried to do some research on that. I couldn't find a definite answer on how many units they're providing. I know that they're park model units and some RV spaces as well. I think most of them are park model, and the RV spaces are more to the left. Mr. Baker, Commissioner Baker, filled me in on this one. Villages at Lynx Creek, and that is located south of Orchard Ranch. I think this is a little bit better example of what a retirement community and their amenities, the type of amenities they should provide. This consists of 457 lots, as well as Orchard Ranch. They provide park model spaces and RV spaces. Amenities and recreational uses that are provided in this community are swimming pool, mini library, event rec center, tennis courts, exercise room, and a laundry room. Again, this is an aerial view of Lynx Creek, and it's located here south of Orchard Ranch. Orchard Ranch is over here. So again, this is just an aerial view indicating the surrounding area around it. As you can see, there's residential on both sides of the community. So applicant Kevin Larson is applying for approval of a proposed zone change and a development plan. Mr. Larson's property is located on the south side of Perkinsville Road, approximately 0.8 miles east of State Highway 89, and consists of two parcels, parcels 306-18-011N and 306-18-011P. He is proposing for a zone change. Currently, The site, it has a underlying zoning of commercial light slash single-family residential 1 acre minimum. He's proposing to leave that underlying zoning and have a PAD, planned area development overlay. The site is currently vacant. As you see here on the visual, the site consists of 2 parcels. There are 3 current parcels within the bigger parcel, which are not part of the project and are not owned by the applicant. Surrounding zoning, based on the subject parcel. North of the site, we can identify agriculture residential 5 acre minimum, single-family residential 2.5 acre minimum, and single-family residential 1 acre minimum. The land uses within the north of the site are single-family residence. There's a nursery to the northwest, and the other land is vacant. To the west, we have commercial light, single-family residential 1/2 acre minimum. The land uses to the west are vacant. To the west here, we have subdivision, Chino Mills Unit 1 subdivision. To the south, we have commercial light, single-family residential, and that currently that land is vacant. And to the east, we have single-family residential 1 acre minimum, and agriculture 5 acre minimum. As we can see, there's single-family residence, and other than that, the land is vacant. Both parcels currently have a land use designation of a medium density residential, 2 acres or less. The land use designation is in conformance with the proposed zoning. The applicant, Mr. Larson, is proposing, as stated before, is to develop a retirement community that consists of 48 units on 4.32 acres, basically 11.1 units per acre, located in parcel 30618-011P. Again here, and a portion of 30618-011N, which is basically just going to be a sliver here that's going to include the second parcel. The applicant is proposing to connect to water and sewer that is provided by the town of Chino Valley. The applicant has gone through the citizens review process. He submitted letters to everybody within a 300-foot radius. On June 12, 2017, we held a neighborhood meeting at the senior center. I believe there was 6 residents. Excuse me?
June 12th hasn't happened yet.
Sorry, May 12th. Thank you for that correction. May 12th. The neighborhood meeting was held May 12th. I believe there was 5 to 6 residents that were present. The letters that I just provided to you was one of the residents that was there. She is not happy with the project. She thinks the project is too dense. During the neighborhood meeting, she did not raise these issues. The reason that we have a neighborhood meeting and the reason why there's a month gap between the neighborhood meeting and P&Z is in order to work with the neighborhood and clarify these issues and these concerns. This was not the case for this resident or other residents that have raised any issues. The first that I heard of this was this morning. So there's no way that we can work with residents in that way. If we're giving them a month and they don't raise any issues till today.
Alex, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
When you have these neighborhood meetings, and I don't go to them, I haven't ever done anything like that. When you have residents in attendance, and a lot of times we don't have anybody attend, but we had 6 or 7, you say here, and you talk to them about it, do you follow up with them afterward?
If there's any issues, yes, we do. The reason for the neighborhood meeting is to clarify any issues and concerns. If we have a resident that is not happy with the development, we try to clarify those issues. A lot of times we try to fix them if we can.
Okay, thank you.
Alex, may I ask a question?
Let's let him finish with his presentation first.
This is the development plan that the applicant submitted. The proposal is for parcel 30611 and 011P. As stated before, there are 48 units within 4.31 acres. If commissioners have any questions, the applicant's engineer is here, as well as myself.
Well, I'm sure that the commission has some questions for you, and then we'll move on to the owner. So,
Okay.
Anybody have questions for Alex?
Yeah, this proposed zoning change, this is for the entire parcel, so anything that the commission would want to recommend, we have to do it at this time, or will we have an opportunity when, let's say, phase 2 or phase 3 gets developed?
This is all in one phase. This will be done in one phase. As stated before, development is going to cover all of parcel 1 and just a sliver of parcel 2. If the commission does forward approval to town council for the PAD overlay, it will consist of both complete parcels, excluding the 3 properties that are within the second parcel.
So, go ahead, Michael.
Alex, I need a little clarification. Could you put up the site plan, site plan again?
Yes, sir.
Now, it's in the letter from the developer. What we see there in the plan, that's phase 1 with the loop street.
Yes, if you read the whole site description, though, he's including this parcel, and the parcel to the south. So the site description that we submitted is covering all of it. Those are future phases. For right now, we're doing it just in this phase, excluding the other parcel and what other verbiage was included in that description. For right now, the only thing that we're covering is the retirement community here.
But if we go with the zoning overlay, the PAD, it's going to cover not only the parcel outlined in blue, but also the one outlined in yellow. Am I correct?
Yes. But again, every PAD has to have a development plan connected to it. In order for him to come back and try to develop this, the development plan will have to be amended. He would have to go through this process again of coming through P&Z and then going to town council in order to amend the development plan if he ever decides to develop further to the east and the south.
So, go ahead, Michael.
Alex, I've been out of the planning profession now for 4 years, but my understanding when I was there is that we cannot condition rezonings, correct? municipalities cannot condition any rezoning.
I am not familiar with that.
Okay, that's my recollection. I don't know if it's changed or not, but my concern is that this is being proposed as an active adult community for the site plan we see here, but there's no tie-in to assure us that whatever is being proposed down the line would have to be an adult community. We cannot condition that. So if he would like to build multi-story apartments and still have that density, could he not do that? Because even on here, it's not listed as phase one. We're approving this as it is. We only have a letter. We have some suggestions that he would like to have some open space amenities. However, there's nothing that's tying in the zoning to this project.
If we look at the UDO and we read the description of what the zoning districts are, he wouldn't be able to do an apartment complex here based on the underlying zoning. And the zoning that he has is, just a minute, is commercial light, single-family residential 1. He has to abide by the approvals of that zoning district. He would be able to do residential. If he wants to come back and plot it out, he will have to go through a pre-plat and then a final plat.
Are apartments allowed in commercial light?
I would have to go back and read the UDO. I believe so, with a conditional use.
Anybody else have questions? Go ahead, Claude.
Alex, I'm really confused about just exactly what this is. It says it's an active adult community. I don't know anything about what the age limitations are. Are we a plus 55 or are we plus 65? Do we allow, is it a family unit? Whatever it is. I also don't see anything on the plot plan that provides for any amenities. I don't see any method of community gathering. I don't see a community building. I don't see walking tracks. I don't see a pool. I don't see anything. I think, frankly, that from what I have seen here and what I have seen of the neighbors, I think this project is very, very premature. It's not been sufficiently developed, in my opinion, to be brought before the city council at this time. It looks to me we have a lot of little lots with nothing to bind the tenants to any set of HOA rules or zoning rules. It looks to me like this is instant slum, frankly. And I don't think it's ready to go to the city council. And I don't think there's anything you can do tonight other than a whole list of stipulations, which I think would be very, very obnoxious on the developer. I really think this should be withdrawn.
Mr. Baker, if I can remember all the questions that were asked, if I forget one, remind me. The first question was what type of age restrictions are there? This is a retirement community. I believe the age restriction is 55 and above. These are rental units. These aren't for sale. They're renting the land that their RV or their park model will be at. These have a.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
These have a 13, I believe, 12-month lease on them. As far as amenities go, the applicant is willing to hear the commissioner's suggestions. Nothing has to be approved today. There can be a continuation, and based on whatever information the applicant received and his engineer received from the commission, as far as amenities and other suggestions, we'll be happy to go back and change that development plan. What was the other question? Did I cover all the questions?
Well, I don't know what's limited. He says a park model. Normally, you showed a lot of pictures here of Orchard Ranch and the villages at Lynx Creek. Both of those allow RV parking, they allow park models, they allow single wides. There's no restriction in those units. Are we to believe that this unit is going to be the same, or are RVs allowed here in addition to the park model? Is this nothing other than just a 48-unit RV park?
Devin, correct me if
I
I'm
don't
wrong,
see
but
anything that
this is
limits.
This is just park models, right? There's no RVs.
Hold on, Alex. Let's everybody ask Alex some questions, and then I'll bring the owner up here and we can quiz him about it.
Excuse me, Commissioner, just to conclude with Commissioner Baker, as far as CCNRs go, and maybe many of the commissioners can correct me, but CCNRs are tied to subdivisions. When property is bought by owners, and that's where the CCNRs, as far as my understanding go, that's as far as they go within subdivisions. Again, this is property that is not for sale, and this is property that's being rented out. Therefore, I don't believe that CCNR should be attached to this development. As far as stipulations, the commission can recommend stipulations in order for the town council to approve the development.
Mr. Chairman,
go ahead.
I don't mind providing stipulations, but to provide a list of stipulations to go along with what we've been presented so far, we'd sit here through tomorrow coming up with a list of stipulations. As far as I'm concerned, this is far too vague to act on. If the developer would like to come back and say, I'd like to put in this, 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 and this, and this, and present it to us so that we can approve or disapprove how he's going forward with it, there's just not enough information here for me to act on.
Anybody
I
else?
concur.
Yeah,
I would concur with our post-commissioners and their
I-
statements.
I have a couple of comments on the staff report that came in with this development. And it says that, and I agree, it says space will be available to rent for a duration of no more than 12 months. That's very clear. We've also clarified that rather than age 65, it is age 55, and I believe the federal requirement for that is that 80% of the occupants have to be 55 or older, so you can have 20% that are younger, and that would actually include children. However, it says community amenities are expected to be available for the residents. And the very next sentence says, there are no specific plans for the location of these amenities within the community. So there's going to be amenities, but they're not going to be in the community. And then as you go down further, at the end of the page, it says all sewer collection mains will be at least 8-inch diameter or at least 6-inch diameter. Well, you know, there's a big difference of how much flow you can get between an 8-inch and a 6-inch. And I think the engineering report should, or the letter from Granite Basin Engineering should at least address that point. And then at the very end of it, it says, with no potential for extension, and yet when you look at the site plan, you very clearly see where it's been run out and capped for future expansion. So, you know, they're saying one thing and then doing something else on the plans. And then I do have some comments on the engineering report and on the site plan as to, it looks like they're using some spaces twice on the site plan, like the sidewalk, you're probably gonna have the back end of your car hanging out on it, because they're only looking at like 20 feet, including the sidewalk, so you've got 16 feet to park your vehicle. And that's gonna be an awful short parking space. You're gonna have to be right up to the building in order to have that fit. If we want to talk to the engineer is very clear as to saying amenities are expected to be available, and he lists barbecue area, raised garden, dog park, gazebo, and then he says no specific plans for location of amenities. And I don't see how we can say, okay, let's change the underlying zoning, let's give a plan area development, and we don't know where this stuff is going or if it will ever show up. I'm not too sure as to the cemetery. And then I do have some questions on the water and sewer comments. As to, I think the big one is, property owner understandingly anticipates the town will grant a commensurate volume of water credit that can be applied to other development projects. I'm not too sure what we're asking to give the developer, or what the town is being asked to give. And then the town is to consider operating and maintaining the regional detention basin. And I think a traffic impact study is required rather than the trip generation that the engineer provided. That's just those were comments. I haven't raised any questions.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for Alex?
I have some comments. Do you want me to hold those?
Well,
for
let's
the
hold
other
those
guy?
till the end of the meeting, otherwise we're not going to go home tonight.
Just to clarify something really quick, what Mr. Paziak mentioned at the beginning about the amenities, what the applicant is intending to say is that the amenities are going to be provided. There's no specific area where these amenities are going to be provided. They are going to be provided, but there's no set space right now. That's based on commission's suggestions.
Okay, thank you. Would Mr. Larson or his representative like to step up to the podium?
Good afternoon. My name
Please-
is David Benner.
Please state your name and your address, please.
David Benner, 1985 West Shadow Valley Drive, Prescott, Arizona.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I prepared all this stuff, so I'll just go through real quickly and respond to some of the comments that were made on the engineering, the sewer size, potential for extension. That's just a really simple, straight out of the administrative code. You have an 8-inch line is the minimum for a main. If there's a potential for extension, then it's a 6. So it's real simple. In this case, we have 8-inch lines that are being proposed throughout the development. If it's a dead end, then it would be a 6-inch with no potential for extension. It's that simple. We're not saying one thing and doing another. So that's simply an interpretation of administrative code saying that it'll all be done in conformance with that. The amenities location, we do not know where they're at right now, where they're going to be at. We don't know exactly what those amenities are going to be. This initial phase is essentially intended to develop some revenue stream and get these units in there. As you pointed out earlier, this overlay is not going to change the existing zoning. It's simply going to add to it as an overlay. It's going to allow this use on this property for the properties that are highlighted there, both yellow and blue. So the amenities, we would expect them to occur in a future phase where this use is allowed. So somewhere in the yellow. It's not proposed in the initial phase, which clearly is pretty common in most projects where the capital funds aren't available to develop those amenities on the first phase. The comment on the sidewalk encroaching into the parking space. If you look at the detail, there's actually a pull-in space, covered parking. And so the intent isn't for that to be a 16-foot space. We're simply showing the fact that there's 16 feet from the building, the edge of the overhang, or the edge of the covered parking to the sidewalk. And so we wouldn't expect there to be a car to park in that 16 feet. Most cars we know today are 20, 30 feet, depending on what you drive. And just as many are less than 16, so it wouldn't be an issue. And so we're not trying to predict who's driving what. What we do know is that the demographic that we're aiming for here is not going to be driving a 20 or 30-foot truck. The demographic that we're hoping to really capture here is the baby boomer population, which is coming of age, and many of them have lost fortunes recently in some of the market crashes. They may be on a fixed income, either Social Security or whatever. And so We're trying to provide something for this demographic where they have a place to go and that's affordable with what they have. And so that's the intent of that. And basically, my off-spin there was essentially to point out the fact that we're not going to be having trucks and trailers being parked in these spaces. The comment on the water credits, the idea there is that the town of Chino, as I'm sure you know, puts all their sewage, their treated sewage, back into the ground, and they get recharge credits for it. And so what we're asking is to be able to get credit for those recharge credits. And it's nearly a 1-to-1 ratio. The town puts in 100,000 gallons a day in recharge, they get that much back. I think it's like 94%. They might get 94 back. And so we would ask that the developer get credit for those recharge units that they put into this town sewer collection system and be able to use that credit on another project. And so water today is, especially in this area, is a very valuable resource. And currently, the developers have no way of capturing that. They're giving away commodity to the town and not getting anything in return, really. And so that's what we're asking there. The regional detention, we certainly don't expect the town to maintain any kind of regional detention facility. That comment was made in response to a town suggestion that if that were an online basin, if it were to function as an online structure, that they would consider maintenance of that basin. So really, we're have no expectation whatsoever to have the town maintain a regional basin. It would make a lot of sense, however, if it were to provide a community benefit that the town would maintain that. It doesn't matter to us. If you don't want it to function as an online basin and you don't want to maintain it, that's fine. That's not what we're trying to say there. I think we were just trying to point out that the town might consider that if it functioned as an online structure or an online facility. So I just wanted to just respond quickly to those few comments, and if there's any more, I'd be happy to answer them.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
I do. I'm
Really?
biting at the bullet. First, let me say a couple of things. I have no problem with manufactured homes. I lived in one for 12 years. We had a beautiful home on beautiful property. I also don't have a problem with making a profit on a real estate investment. What I do have a problem with is slapping a few concrete pads down, calling it affordable senior housing, when there's a 12-month lease attached to it, and saying that you're going to have park models for sale. This isn't permanent housing. It isn't something that benefits in the long run the town or the individual. They depreciate. For the life of me, I don't know why anybody would want to live in a park meadow in windy Chino Valley, but that's just my opinion. You're asking for a cemetery or contemplating a cemetery. You're asking for this, you're asking for that.
Let me just step in there real quick.
No, I'd like to
Cemetery.
finish my
Okay.
commentary, please.
Yes, ma'am.
As many have already stated, you're asking for a lot of things for us to give you a blanket approval, and I'm not ready to do that. I'm also not ready to accept manufactured housing as the best use of a property for affordable senior housing. I think there's a lot better uses and better things to do for that purpose. We have a lot of seniors in the area that can't afford some of the low-income housing that we already have in these apartments, and the lists are years long for them to get in. We need to work that way. We've approved a couple apartment complexes, but I am with Mr. Baker in that I see a future ghetto developing for low-income people who have fallen on hard times for their own, and I've been there. But I also drive by a lot of these properties every day and see them getting worse and worse and worse. We have our fair share of manufactured housing, I think, if not more than that. And I used to sell manufactured home too, so I know some of the things they do to get people into these homes. That's why I don't do it anymore. So I have to tell you, I'm not for this development or the other one. And I will not approve it at this point.
Thank you for your comments. May I respond?
Sure.
Okay, the non-permanent housing, that's a good point. And it's not a stick-built structure. And again, this is a PAD overlay. So this use that we're asking for is in addition to the commercial light and the single-family SR1 that's already entitled to the property. And so it may be a temporary use. And so depending, of course, on how full they are, obviously, right? So I'll get to some of the other points you made later. The cemetery has nothing to do with the approval of this project. That was actually when we initially came in and we were looking to entitle the entire holding of this property owner, which included the 2 parcels shown there and the one to the south as well. And so this the cemetery is not even on the table for this particular vote. I just want to make that clear. So it has nothing to do with the issue at hand. Your comments in relation to ghetto and worse, all this stuff, questionable ethics or whatever it is, as far as how that industry, I can't really speak to that. I've never been in that industry, but I can totally understand and relate to what you're saying. I think it's saying it could be a future ghetto. I guess it could be a 55 and older ghetto, but it's not a single family use, and it's not intended to be. And so it's pretty doubtful, I believe, that you're going to have a your generation ghetto. It's usually that's not associated with that. With
You
that
should follow me
demographic.
home then and sign up to the meeting.
Well, hey, I grew up here, and so I've been out here for a long time, and so there's some really nice communities in Chino.
There are.
And there's some really bad ones.
I think.
And it's been that way for a long time.
Folks,
for over 40
let's
years.
just kind of limit the back and forth here, please.
So, just really quickly, I just wanted to respond to that, specifically the fact that you're not voting on a cemetery today. And again, we're asking for a use. And I want to underline the fact, and nobody's made mention of this, in the single-family zoning, there's no distinguishing between stick-built or manufactured or whatever. So they can go and do that now. And so that doesn't change anything here.
It does, except for the size of the property.
density.
Except for the size of the property. Thank you, sir. And also, I'd like to point out the impacts of our proposed use compared to what is now. We did a little table here in our letter, and I'm sure you saw it, just based on occupancy rates, known occupancy rates for this demographic is nearly half of what it is for single family. So 1.5 per unit to 2.5 per unit. And so if you look at the population and just do the math, sure, we're asking for more units and more density. But if you look at the water demand, it's less than half of what it would be with the current zoning. And the sewer is, geez, I don't know, what is that, a pretty small fraction, 54 of 78,
No, they won't have yards.
of the sewer. And then the trip generation specifically, the big difference here is the trip generation. You're looking at 2,400 trips per day that's your weekly, for what we're proposing versus minimum 15,000 per week for what's it's entitled to. And on an hourly basis, it's 176 versus over 1,500. And so what we're really asking for is a downzoning, in my opinion. And so there is some vagueness inherent to this. And because we don't know exactly how the community's gonna react to it. And so we're trying to do it, we're trying to do this in bite-sized chunks and see if it works or not, and see if there's interest, see if
Okay.
it sparks interest. But we do believe that it will be a good project. It will not be a ghetto, and it will not be, it's not gonna be a detriment to the town of Chino Valley.
I don't think you can guarantee that, sir.
Well, I don't think you can guarantee it'll be a ghetto either.
No, I
All
can't.
right,
but-
let's move forward, please.
Well, I do have one question for him, though, and I promise I'll be quiet after that.
Let him finish, and we'll come back to you.
I'm good, sir. I'll just wait to, I think I've answered all your questions.
Not yet.
Other
okay,
than the
well,
one
wait,
she's
please.
fixing to nail you with. Go ahead.
man. Bring it on.
I didn't bring a nail gun, just so you know. You are representing two different properties here tonight, is that correct?
That's correct.
You're representing two different sets of owners, is that correct?
That's correct.
What is your relationship? How did you come about this gig you've got with these two
I
different?
grew up here, and I opened my own firm here.
Mm-hmm.
Joined the military straight out of high school, went and lived overseas for a while, came back, put myself through college, and I opened this firm over 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So you were actually hired by these folks to do
That's
engineering
correct.
for them?
Separately.
That's correct,
Okay.
separately.
I do have one final comment. I think we could do better than that, is my
Well, I
only
would
thought.
really encourage, and one thing I want to make sure, I appreciate criticism. I think that's a really important process. But it's really difficult or not practical to expect anything in return if you criticize and don't provide any kind of input. And so saying you just don't like that is one thing, but saying you don't like it, maybe try this is another. And so maybe if there were some constructive points of that, I would embrace it. I embrace your comments and your feedback and hope to incorporate that into a resubmittal here. But again, what's on the table here is a very simple approval, land use approval, that would allow this as an overlay in addition to what's already there, which is a commercial and single family. And so it is just for to answer one of the questions earlier, it was, what about the phasing? Basically, this first phase is the blue. We're trying to entitle that and the yellow. So it's possible that the next phase, if it were in the yellow, could be run through and developed without going before the commission again. And so that's what we're hoping for. So we can, if this moves and it's a success, we want to be able to develop it. But it will be done in accordance with all the applicable rules and regulations. We don't want to build a ghetto. We want to build a nice community that has amenities. And so really simple in that respect. So again, I'm happy to answer any additional questions or comments, and I really thank you for your time.
Go ahead.
One more thing, and going to your last comment about running it through without coming it back and everything else, I'm gonna quote something in here, if I can find it again.
You're not quoting me, are
The
you?
overall project will be developed in phases. This application only encompasses the first phase. So you're not gonna go into anywhere else without coming back, according to this.
Actually, if you look at the, I'm not sure which you're reading here, maybe one of the opening paragraphs.
In the project description.
In the-
Is that right or wrong? Am I reading it wrong?
I'm not sure what you're reading.
Project description?
It's part of
Third
the
paragraph.
Staff
town.
report?
It's part of the staff report from the town.
So if it's wrong coming out of the staff or wrong coming out of the developer, I'm not here to assign blame, I'd just like it clarified.
Sure, I
please.
understand, I appreciate that. I'm trying to find what you're reading here.
I can bring it out there if you'd like.
Why don't you let me have it?
I need to get,
Third paragraph down in the description.
Project description, third paragraph down.
the overall project. Yeah, I would agree, the way that's written. And so that certainly wasn't the intent. But yeah, as I see it, I would agree. I would have to agree.
Thank you,
This
sir.
Overall project will be developed in phases, so I couldn't argue that.
Just make sure we're all on the same page.
Well, I would like to change that to be at least those two phases. That's the intent. That was obviously the intent of the project, and so I don't know if you guys can change that on the fly, or if you just need to go with what we got.
That would be a question for Alex, I believe.
Anybody else have any questions?
I have a comment on it, because that's what the staff report says as description as to it will be phased, and we're only looking at the first phase, which is this small 4.3 acre. You want us to approve the 23 plus acre development, and at that point, we'd like to know where the amenities are, and if they're in the second phase, what are they going to look like? Because you're asking us to approve phase 1 and phase 2.
Sure.
And with the engineering report, it is asking that the cemetery be approved as a conditional of the PAD.
No, sir, just to be clear, there has been a bit of back and forth here, and thank you for pointing that out, Commissioner. The 23.7 acre property is the entirety of those 4 parcels.
So the blue and the yellow constitutes the 23 acres?
No, sir, that is the only a small portion of it. In fact,
Okay.
if there's 2 of the larger parcels to the south of those, and which have been taken off the table basically as far as what we thought we were coming here for. So we're really only looking to entitle the northernmost parcels, which would be phase 1, and then what's in yellow there. The parcel numbers are correct, N and P, but.
The acreage is not correct.
Yeah, the acreage is for the whole, which would be, so it's probably half that.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay,
Commissioner Mayor, if I may, really quick, just to clarify something. The issue about the cemetery keeps coming up. Again, we would like to clarify that the project is consisting of 23 acres, 23.31 acres. As stated before, every PAD that gets approved with a development plan. That means that the development plan that's being approved right now is this. The only thing that this is stating is development here.
but if we're being asked to include the part in yellow, then the answer is we might be PADing this right here, but it also tails into the yellow area, correct?
Correct. So the PAD for the approval will include the yellow as well. But again, this is the development plan.
So the development plan is only for the blue.
And a sliver of the yellow.
Aha.
But again, the development plan states that he can only develop here. If he wanted to develop again, he would have to come and amend the development plan and include whatever he wants to develop over here.
Okay, so just to make sure that we're all clear on this, right now, if we decided to move forward with this, the area in the blue, which includes a small portion of the yellow, would be for the development plan, but the zoning overlay, the PAD, would be for the entire property, blue and yellow. Am I correct? The two parcels.
Yeah, as well as the development plan. Again,
Okay.
the development plan includes a sliver of the yellow.
Okay.
If they want to come back and develop over
So-
here and over here, they will have to adopt or amend, the development plan, showing a new development plan, including the new development here.
Okay. All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
I guess, just so it's clear in my mind, I know what we're approving now, or what we're asked to recommend to forward to the town council. I understand the PAD is both of these parcels. The second phase that is not developed yet, that we are giving this PAD to, will it come back to us to look at, to make comment on?
If the developer has the desire to develop on the
Let's say phase two.
on the portion, or phase two, yeah, let's call it phase two, he would have to come back and get approval for an amended development plan.
Okay,
would it come to Planning and Zoning Commission for comment and recommendation?
Yes, sir, well, you would have to
Okay.
approve it, with recommend, or forward it with approval.
Okay, because I think this would have gone smoother if they said Phase 2, they would build the amenities.
Right.
Because the way I read it, it's like, we're gonna have amenities, but it's not in this plan.
As I believe, and if it's my understanding that if they want to amend the development plan, they would have to go through the citizens review process again, sending out letters, notifying neighborhood, surrounding neighborhood owners.
So at this point, we are to rest assured that there will be no amenities in Phase 1? None?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And if Phase 2 doesn't go, there will be no
Amenities.
amenities at all.
correct.
Public comments?
Yep. Okay, we're going to open up the public portion of this meeting for this item on the agenda. You're going to get 3 minutes to speak. You will please step up to the podium and state your name and address. Please be respectful and concise and try not to repeat things. Who would like to be first? Ma'am?
My name is Carol Diamond, and I live at 1621 North Chino. I share a property line with this project. I'm just to the west of it. I have a beautiful view. I've had it for 15 years, but I've always known that this parcel behind me was going to get developed. Worst case scenario is a 2 or 3 story apartment building. Best case scenario is a senior mobile home park. It could also go light commercial, and there'd be a lot of activity during the day and then it's abandoned at night, and to me that's like a crime magnet. I love this concept. Now, there may be a lot of details that need to be worked out, but I support this concept. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Benson, 460 Homestead Mesa. I don't live near this, but I'm close to the edge. If Phase 1 doesn't include the amenities, is it going to be advertised to have amenities? And if Phase 2 isn't approved, which is potentially where the amenities would go, where people are going to be looking at this thinking they're going to get amenities because it's advertised that way. And if Phase 2 doesn't get approved, they never come up. So I don't have my walk path, I don't have all the other stuff that might be advertised to be part of Phase 1, which technically isn't going to be there.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, we're going to close the public portion of this meeting. Does any of the commissioners have other things they would like to state or comment or questions?
I'd like to agree with our two previous commissioners about the lack of information. That may have changed since the developer or the engineer has given us more information. But I look at planned area development regulations. It says modify underlying zoning district regulations to permit flexibility and innovation in development design. The key for me is innovation development design, and I don't see it right now. Also, it says D, preserve and utilize open space and offer recreational opportunities close to residential use. I don't see that here right now. And I understand through the application process, these questions aren't really always addressed. Sometimes they are. Sometimes I've seen that they haven't been on our past PADs. And when these PADs are coming to us now, they're coming in with large amounts of density increases. And this is not going to stop, I don't think. I would just like to see this perhaps continued until this is fleshed out better. I'm looking at this now from a legal perspective. We approved this site plan. There's no phasing on this site plan. There's two different property owners. What if the other property owner says, look, I don't want to provide the open space? What do we do? It says that my property right to develop as it is. And so now we're see, it's not listed as Phase 2. We're approving this, but we're approving this with all these units on here. Could it be apartments? Could be. Now, he's saying park models. Park models are an RV. And so that means he doesn't have to put park models there unless it's really stipulated. Secondly, park models cost a lot more than your typical RV. They wanted to put them in the city of Prescott, cost a lot of money, and when we told them they had to go in an RV park, a lot of people didn't want to because the lower cost RVs are on the RV parks. So I would just like to suggest that this perhaps be continued off calendar until we get more information that we could really tie all the loose ends down. And those would be my comments.
Anybody else? Excuse me.
I agree with Michael on that. I believe this could very well be a viable development. I do not think this is ready to go to the city council. There have been way too many questions. There are too many unanswered questions actually here. I think this should be sent back to the presenter and asked to clarify the phasing, clarify where any amenities will be, perhaps give us some insight into the business plan that is behind this so that we can understand why amenities would not be built at this time. There's a lot of questions to be answered, but I believe it should just be returned.
Anybody else?
I have to agree with that. I appreciate the comments and the insight provided by the developer and by a local resident, but I think it's a little vague right now.
Well, that's, my question is it an RV park? Is it a manufactured home park? Is this park going to be manufactured home and that park going to be RV park? Frankly, I'd rather have an RV park. We could use one. We're kind of on the way to Grand Canyon. But if you're talking about senior housing, which is what I thought we were talking about, Country Park West is a good model, I think. It's a nice place. People are happy to live there. You could range it, the price range from lower to higher in different sections like I think they do over there now. But this has too many holes in it for me to approve right now.
Anybody else? Well, I'm going to keep my comments fairly short. I do think that this could be a very nice project if it was detailed out in a lot more clear fashion than it is. There seems to be lots of questions and answers provided by the engineer, which we're grateful that he clarified some of the stuff for us. I don't think it's our job to design this development, which is kind of what we've been asked to do tonight. The engineer and the owner should come to us with at least a minimum site plan for the second phase, and then I have a huge concern that we do the first phase, the second phase falls through. Folks are sold a bill of goods, not intentionally, but things do change. Economy can go up or down. Opportunities come and go. So I believe, in my opinion, that this thing should go back again, do some homework on it, come back with maybe where the amenities are going to go, some more development of the site plan, some reassurances that if the first phase gets put through, that the folks that buy that clearly receive the benefits that they think that they purchased in the first place. So with that, I'm going to entertain a motion.
I move that this project be returned to the presenter and asked to clarify the comments of the commission as they've been heard tonight, and that it not be sent to the city council at this time.
We have a
I
motion.
second
Do we have a
that motion.
second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion, all opposed? Motion carried unanimously. I would encourage the developer and the engineer to take another lick at it. This really was not very complete. All right. Moving forward to item 6B, consideration and possible action regarding a proposal to abandon preliminary plat and the development plan for a 54.5 combined acres located east of Road 1 West and a half a mile north of Road 4 North. Assessors parcel number 306-04008J, parcel number 306-04005Y, parcel number 306-04005X. Staff report.
Good evening, Commissioners. Before you have application by applicant James Fletcher. He's requesting to abandon the preliminary plat that was currently approved by Town Council and approval of a development plan. The subject properties are located east of Road 1 West and half a mile north of Road 4 North, identified as parcels 306-04005X, 04005Y, 04008J. Currently, the parcels have a zoning of SR.16, single-family residential, half an acre minimum with a PAD overlay. The project consists of 54.50 acres combined. So originally the site, or this project consisted of approximately 133 acres. It consisted of 4 parcels ranging in the sizes of 12 to 87 acres and included assessors parcels 306-04005X, 005Y, 006H, and 008J, which is basically the subject parcels that are highlighted, and this big parcel over here to the east was the original project. Previously, actions by the town of Chino Valley included approval of a zone change from agriculture residential 5 acre minimum to the current single family residential half an acre minimum with a planned area development overlay. Yes, 7,000 square feet. That is identified as ordinance number 07690. That was approved by Town Council in May 24th of 2007. The same date, Town Council approved resolution number 07839, approving the preliminary plat for 406 lots, an entire 133 acres, a portion of which is subject to this potential project. So this is the original, or the pre-plat that was approved by Town Council. That included, again, 406 lots and then 133 acres. So this was a pre-plat, and this was the project that the applicant had in mind. The applicant came to staff and had the desire to emulate something similar to Orchard Ranch, which we previously presented, and have this development and part of this project that was approved by Town Council. Given the flexibility accompanied by a PAD overlay, amending the existing PAD and adopting a new development plan is the way that the applicant wants to go. In order to do that, the applicant has to abandon resolution 07839, which was a pre-plat that was approved by Town Council. And he has to do this because this applies to the encompassing 55 acres described above in the proposed project. So in order to do that, he has to abandon it. Upon approval, the development plan is going to replace the previously adopted or approved preliminary plat. The new development plan will reduce the lot size to no smaller than the 16 acres, 7,000 square feet allowed by the underlying zoning. Any change to the balance of the property incumbent to the pre-plat will require a separate action, either the approval of development plan or amend of the underlying pre-plat. So here we have the surrounding zoning of the properties. To the north, we can identify agriculture 5-acre minimum and single-family residential 1.5 acre minimum. The land uses identified there are single-family residence and other lands that are vacant. To the west, we identify agriculture residential 5-acre minimum. That has a land use of being vacant or is identified as being vacant. To the south, we have agriculture residential 5-acre minimum and single-family residential 1-acre minimum. Land uses there are single-family residence and vacant. And to the east, we have single-family residential 1-acre minimum and agriculture residential 5-acre minimum. The land use designation of the subject parcels are identified as medium density residential, 2.5 acres or less. The underlying zoning is in conformance with the general plan designation. So here we see side-to-side comparison of the portion of the pre-plan that was approved and the proposed development plan. And as you put them together, one on top of the other, you see that there really is not a lot of difference. There's a little bit more density with a development plan, but the proposed development plan reflects that of the previous pre-plat. I believe within this area there was, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Fletcher, 140 units? Yeah, there were 140 units within this area. Again, the developer is requesting approval for something similar than the last applicant. He is asking for approval of a active adult community. Again, we will identify here park models, not RVs, not trailer parks, but park models. These have the same vision of having a 12-month rental, 55 and above. If commissioners have any questions, applicant is here, engineer is here.
Alex, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On the open space, and this dealt with our previous review on the previous project as well. We're looking
just
at-
a minute, Commissioner. Let me pull it up in the
Sure.
bigger scale. Sorry about that. No, that's the wrong one.
There we are. It says, propose an existing open space based upon land use is 15% for this phase 1 and phase 2. That would be compared to 0% if this was developed in accordance with the code. My question is usable open space. I noticed the open space as being proposed is mainly detention, if I'm missing it wrong. And only one space on phase 2 in the corner is being proposed as any type of perhaps real open space, but there's also a drainage pattern going through there. So what is the viable open space for the development?
Why don't we let the commission deal with Alex for a minute here, and then we'll bring you up. How about that? Anybody else have questions for Alex, or would you like to respond?
I would like the applicant to respond.
Okay, can we
Amen.
save that for him then? You got your question memorized?
Yes,
All
thank
right.
you.
Any other questions for Alex? Thank you. If the owner would like to come up and speak, please state your name and address.
I am Jim Fletcher. I live at 3329 North Road 1 West, Chino Valley. This is can I ask questions, or do you want me to give you an overview of what our proposal is first?
An overview would be fine.
Okay. The amenities we have talked about are possible amenities include golf course, clubhouse, pool, lounge areas, tennis, pickleball courts, snack bars, barbecue areas, raised gardens, and dog parks. There will be some of the amenities on Phase 1 and some on Phase 2. The reason I've put in there the golf course is we left Phase 2, that the irrigation is still on Phase 2. So we are able to use that as open space and irrigate it for a small executive golf course, putting greens, walkways, pathways. We do have a pathway around, if you look at the far north side of Phase 2 there. And then on the plan, I asked for, with the opportunity for open space development. So I'm not sure on all of the open space yet and where it's all going to be. I can give a number on how much open space at a minimum, but I think I want more than the minimum. I just don't know exactly where the open space is going to lay yet. Does that make any sense?
Yes, what you said made sense.
Yeah, we have the irrigation left for eternity on Phase 2. We do own and control the rest of the property behind of this project that you originally seen of the 406 lots. And this is only Phase 1 and 2. I will be coming back with a plan to develop that portion along with this portion in the same over 55 retirement community. These lots are 7,000 square foot density. These are not small lots. These are huge lots for this kind of project. Most lots in this project are 1,500 to 2,000 square feet. These are 7,000 square foot, and that's what the underlying zoning is. We want a nice project. We want open space. We would like to be able to plan the rest of it. If Phase 1 goes like we anticipate, we'd like to go ahead and phase the rest of it and used quite a bit of Phase 2 for irrigated open space for the golf course and the green area. We right now are growing about 400 trees in Phase 2 to move to each one of these lots and around the open space walk area.
I'm
sorry,
just a
how
little
many-
confused. Excuse me.
How many trees did you say?
There's 400 there.
Okay.
In Phase 2, do you see where that jog is?
Mm-hmm.
There's 400 trees being irrigated there to be able to move throughout the project.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just a little confused. I'm looking at the beige areas where the units are going to go, and you're speaking of an executive golf course area. Where would that exactly go?
That's why I'm asking for with the opportunity to open space development. I want to be able to lose some lots and add some additional open space. I haven't decided yet which lots we want to lose. We haven't put lots on this. We have just asked for 7,000 square foot minimum lot, minimum density is what it's called. And that's what the underlying zoning is. But that's why I put a maximum number. We had our community meetings, and the feedback I was getting was the number of units we were asking for was higher than the people that showed up at the meeting, or people. The number of units we were asking for was, they were worried about that, too many units. So we cut it back to fit the underlying zoning. So we're not asking for a zoning change, we're asking just for development to abandon the preliminary plat and go with a development agreement for the project, PAD overlay for development with open space opportunities.
Any more questions?
Just a comment. I think you've probably seen the letter that I.
Yes, sir, I did.
Mrs. Mayday. My concern here is not what you're talking about. What you're talking about is wonderful, but I don't see on phase one any indication that there is any place for a community center, for a pool, for any of the amenities we've talked about. And I'm nervous when I see something going in for final approval, and I'm only relying on your word that we're going to do something about it. I would like to see something on the plan, or I would like to see a stipulation in here that you will provide for some of these things. I don't distrust you at all.
No, I understand.
I've just been around a long time.
I liked your stipulations. Would you like to go over them now and we'll visit about them a little bit? Your stipulations in the letter, could we go over them now?
Yes.
Okay. Let me find your letter. Right here. Okay, so let's start out with, the developer will provide a community center with spaces for small meetings and craft workshops. I agree with that.
Good.
I didn't want that in phase one. I want to make sure this project works. I will agree to put that in phase two. Will that work for you?
I didn't suggest that this would all go into phase one. I simply wanted it as a stipulation that sometime during this development, these things would happen.
I understand. I appreciate that. I like these stipulations you have here. That's what my thoughts were, and I read this, and I said, well, he's right on track with what I was
Good.
thinking. Developer will provide at least one non-invasive tree for each rented unit.
I've been watching your trees grow.
Have you? The developer will either provide a community center or both developments, or tie the units together with non-street paths. The long-range plan, the whole project gets tied together like the preliminary plat in future phasing. We just brought these two phases to you because I want to make sure phase 1 and 2 build out and it's working for everybody, that everybody is happy with the project before I commit to the other 130 acres.
Certainly, I understand that. My concern is that when you have phase 1 and phase 2 completed, that there's really no need for two community centers, and yet you have property between. An easement across that center property where the old farm is certainly would ease that, and that's what I was talking about.
I agree. My plan for that centerpiece is the caretaker house.
Okay.
Yeah, my house there in the middle,
Yes.
and then up front with the actual barns is for the little tractors that mow the grass and that type of thing.
Yeah, that could really be a nice community center, right, that area.
Yep, I agree. I
Okay.
agree. And then the developer will provide an outdoor picnic and seating area. I would be glad to provide that in Unit 1 and Unit 2. The community center in Unit 2. The developer will provide active areas for tennis courts and swimming pools. I thought the swimming pool should be at the clubhouse.
I said or
Yeah,
swimming pool, but some type of active community.
yep,
We old guys still like to get out and do something.
yep, I agree. And I would like to do that in Unit 2 by the clubhouse.
Okay.
And then development will be restricted to those family units with at least one member 55 years of age, and that is correct.
All right.
We want a senior retirement community. We went around and researched, and the people that live in the Orchard Ranch down in Dewey, it's basically full. They enjoy it. They can afford to live there. The other project you were talking about, ma'am, on the highway here, Park West, Country Park,
Yes, thank you.
basically full. Have you been through there lately?
I've driven through it a couple of times.
What a beautiful project, huh?
It is a nice.
Those lots are a lot smaller than what we're presenting. We're presenting to tie it to the underlying zoning, so this project will be a lot less dense for the area that project is. But still, beautiful trees, drainage, some double wides. You know, we are not, this could be, these lots are so big that somebody could put a larger unit on it. 7,000 square feet, you know, it was designed for single-family homes. Our trip usage, our impact to the community is a lot less than our preliminary plat that we originally proposed. The water usage is less, the sewers usage, the road impact is less. Do you have any questions or, yes, ma'am?
And apparently it's just my problem, but why are we on the park models? Is there some kind of industry trend that I'm not aware of?
No, I don't think so.
I know they're affordable, but.
I think it's affordable senior living in, I've looked at numerous in Mesa, I've looked at them in Wickenburg. They're beautiful projects. 7 o'clock at night, it's quiet. There's nobody, you know, riffraff. You limit it to the age. We were going to have the gates at 10 o'clock. We have to have the keypad after 10 o'clock to come in. So it's basically gated. Not during the day, it will be open. But after 10 o'clock, you have to have your code push it in to get in the gates.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of security there. If you want to open it up to the larger units, we can do that. We cannot stipulate just park models. We can say, you know, like a Country West Mobile Home Park has some double wides. I'm perfectly okay with that on a 7,000 square foot lot. You know, those are 1,200 square feet on the 7,000 square foot density. So if you want to add that in one of the stipulations, that the flexibility to go to
Well, I
the
think
larger homes.
Providing the financial range from a smaller unit to a larger
Sure.
unit. The other problem I have with a lot of these is they're elevated off the ground, and a lot of those folks can't do the stairs, even if it's only 3 or 4 stairs. So there's
Yeah.
got to be room for ramps and.
And I've seen now, at some of them I've interviewed in the valley, that they set them ground level.
That would be nice.
Yeah. Yeah, they set them ground level, and there'll be a minimum of 1 tree, but there will, I'm sure, be more plants than that on that big of spaces.
Okay. I have similar concerns about the future of a project like this, what's going to happen to it. But with the larger lots, perhaps that would negate that somewhat.
I think so. I mean, I look at these projects, I don't know if you've been able to go around to very many like I have. I have had that opportunity by planning this one. And they're very nice projects. They're very active. They have clubhouses. People have projects that they do together, like the gardening and swimming. And it gives people that are on fixed incomes, retired people, a place to live. And we're not talking about a bad community here, where this is going to be this big of lots. There's a lot of money put into this real estate and infrastructure to keep it nice.
Any other questions, comments?
I have a question. I think it may go back to Alex because it's part of the project description. In paragraph 1 of the project description, the last sentence, street improvements for the initial phase include private loop roads with 2 access points to Road 1 East.
What?
Is that
West.
supposed to be west, or are you drilling a tunnel underneath 89 and going that way?
No, that's a typo, sir. I guess it would be Road 1 West, yes.
Thank
And there's a second loop road to each one for emergency vehicles.
Right. Is that both ingress and egress?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Any other comments? Thank you, Mr. Fletcher.
You're welcome. I appreciate it.
We're going to open up the public portion of this meeting. Again, 3 minutes. Be polite, keep it concise, and try not to repeat yourself. State your name and address as you get up to the microphone.
My name is Bill Michael. I live at 3649 North, Road 1 West. I didn't receive a letter, but learned something tonight that I guess there's a 300-foot radius from the property, and I live just north of this property. I've got 12 acres there. It's zoned AR5, so it's ag. So I'm about 600 feet from the north property line of this development. And the back of my property, my east property line borders phase 3 of this development. So I'll be right there joined at the hip of this, this development. As I mentioned, I've got 12 acres. I've lived there for 15 years. I've got a couple 5-acre pastures that I farm, disc with a tractor, diesel tractor, make noise. I am zoned ag. I've got a 250 horsepower diesel engine that powers a 700-foot deep irrigation well that I use for irrigation. I've got grandfather water rights and hold that dear to my heart. About ready to retire, and I'll be able to put, my goal was to put the rest of my remaining years in, my wife and I living there. We've got grandkids and kids and that have moved away, but it's our little farm. You know, it's not to make money, it's our little farm. We've had animals in the past. I think of what happens when you pull a couple calves off of cows, wean them off after they're several months old, and you hear the cows, the mamas bawl for a week and a half. That's reality. If you happen to have any pigs, you know, I'm allowed to have at least 12 from what I understand. I'm not planning on having 12, but I mean, these are my rights that are going to be infringed on immensely. Not only my rights, but my neighbor's rights. And if you look at your zoning all around this property, the majority of it is AR5. I think this is just an absolute huge infringement on my right as a property owner to get one of the most dense, populated zoning allowances moved right next door that now that we all have to live with. Our property values are going to drop. Can anyone here honestly say that they would love to have one of these facilities moved right in next door to them? Think about that for a moment. I'd like to have a conversation with that person if that's the case. Something else that really bothers me is the fact that we're going to be pitting people that rent these spaces against some of us that have lived there way longer than I have, longer than 15 years. You're going to be pitting Chino Valley residents against each other with a development like this. I got no problem with people developing their property. It's just incredible that we could go from what I've learned in the past week or two, this high density, right up to, I mean, Collier Farms. They've got 40, 50 acres, and this phase 3 abuts right up to their property. I mean, there should be a buffer of zoning, in my opinion. I mean, doesn't that seem reasonable? Instead of just going from, you know, one heavily populated area to ag, people that have been there for a number of years. Pretty upsetting to my wife and I, and I plan on hauling manure in from the auction over here on Perkinsville Road and tilling it into my soil instead of using chemicals and stuff. Mulch from Prescott and tilling it into the soil to help build the soil up. I mean, how's that going to impact these people? How fair is that to them? Really, I mean, I got to look at both sides of it. I try to be a realist. I know I went past my 3 minutes.
I'll give you one more. How's that?
Okay, I'll give you a good example of another individual. I don't know if anybody knows Bernie Flora. Bernie had rented 54 acres on Road 4, on 4 North, between Highway 89 and 1 West. Bernie had some pretty nice farm equipment, did farm, planted winter wheat and so on and so forth. Well, when he fired the irrigation well up that was powered with a generator, a diesel generator, even though he was doing it within his required time, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. or whatever it was, he had people complain and made his life so miserable. That piece of property is now up for sale. You'll see it's 54 acres. Mr. Baker right there, you drive by it every day on 4 North. And he's moved to Texas. He was so disgusted with people complaining and hounding him over the noise. I feel I'm going to be that guy myself. I hope everybody really thinks hard about this before we allow a density like this to move in on us. Anyway, that's all I've got to say. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
You're welcome. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else?
Could we ask Alex a question on the density?
Why don't we let the public come through first, and then we'll come back to that.
My name is Dean Metherell. I live at 3620 Road 1 North, straight across the street from Bill. I moved here from Williamson Valley about a year ago because of this type of an issue. I used to rescue animals. I have lots of pets. I have horses, dogs, cats, and they're dear to me. And for this stuff to come in and people walking up and down in front of my property, my dog's going crazy, we'll have the animal control out there knocking on my door. And that's what I just got away from. Not to come around and have this again. And I love my piece of property, but I feel like this is just going to destroy it. And, you know, you move to the country for the country. You don't move to the country for the city. Put this shit in the city. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Anybody else like to make a comment?
My name is Leslie Bloom, and unfortunately, my boundaries are completely right next to Phase 2 and the back part that he intends to develop later. I've lived there for over 20 years. We bought the property for horses and dogs and cats, and that's what I have. And I'm just going to repeat what everybody else has said, because Bill's my neighbor. He lives across the street, and I don't want this kind of density living right next door to me.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name's Ryan Roberts. I live at 390 Homestead Mesa, which is way on the other side of town. However, I'm a land surveyor in the area, and it seems like every big project like this that gets kicked down, what ends up happening is they just split it, and then we end up with a bunch of splits that just breaks it down to 1 acre anyway. You have a bunch of easements, you know, that are 50 foot wide. Nobody takes care of those roads. They're muddy. Nobody wants to live next to that either. I just see projects like this where somebody's willing to put some money into it, make it pretty, and you know, it shouldn't just get slammed down because, you know, everybody else around it doesn't necessarily want it.
But you're not living next to it, and
well, I'm sure.
Folks, if you have other comments, please direct them to the chair.
I mean, I understand that people don't want to live next to it, but at some point that property was for sale and it was bought. So Going forward, you know, I split land all the time here in Chino, and it's pulling teeth to try to make it worthwhile, and you end up with a bunch of easements that are just dead-end easements, and it looks terrible. Chino is fought with these dog legs and just all kinds of crap out there that just looks, and it doesn't even work, you know. We got dog legs that are, you know, 6 dog legs that are 25 foot wide in a row, so you got, you know, ridiculous little jogs that go through there, and, you know, now we're getting away from that, and we've got a project that, you know, is pretty decent. So, you know, in my opinion, like, we have to approve some projects, and it's my opinion that I think he's already got an approved project. So if this doesn't go through, he could still fall back on the other project. Is that correct?
We could build 7,000 square foot residential lots. Yeah, we have the zoning. We're just
Excuse me.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying that, like, they already have a preliminary plat approved. So if nothing else, they can resort back to it. So it doesn't really matter. It could be developed anyway. So if somebody's willing to put the effort in and make it pretty, I think it should be approved.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Okay, Alex, could you clarify some things for us?
Yeah, before I answer Mr. Bacon's question, just to clarify that it's not only the property owners that are within the 300-foot radius. Everybody within the town gets notified. The project is posted on the Sunday newspaper. It's also, the site is posted as well twice. First notifying of the neighborhood meeting, and then notifying of the public hearings. As well in this newspaper, it's notified twice. So everybody within the town that has the ability to have a newspaper or drive by the site, it gets notified.
Thank you.
As far as zoning and density, as stated by Ryan, he is correct. He has the density for it. If we see that general plan map, this is the general plan is something that not only involves the town itself, it involves the community as well. It's a 10-year project. There's constant going back and forth. And this is the map. This is the map that us as a community created. If we see where Mr. Fletcher is at, what's the land use designation? It has a designation of medium density residential, 2 acres or less. He meets the general plan designation, and he has a zoning for it.
So what you're saying is the zoning is in place now for him to develop this property with the same square footage of lots as what the project he's asking for now. Is that correct?
He has a zoning of sorry, I have the wrong one. He has a zoning for single-family residential, 0.16, 7,000 square feet minimum in the area.
Thank you.
With a PAD overlay.
So the square footage of the lots themselves are basically the same size from one version of the development to the new version, the old version to the new version.
Yes.
Could I see the number 14 on your slide presentation? That's what he has approved right now.
That's the preliminary plat that he had approved back in 2007, yes. As stated right now, here's the 2 plans side by side, and then we put them above each other. They're basically the same. We're talking about same density.
Except in this case, there's amenities.
Exactly.
And may I also add that he said he's going to be taking out some of those lots to put in some type of community center, golf. I'm not sure what he means by executive golf course. To me, that's all like a par 3 course, which is still kind of big, unless it's a miniature golf course.
We have an applicant here that's willing to work with the commission. We're not pulling teeth here. He's willing to work. He's willing to give up open space. He's willing to put amenities that you guys have asked for.
I have one question, Alex. Has there been any thought of perhaps a perimeter wall
A wall?
On, let me see if I get this orientated right.
You're referring to a wall over here on this parcel?
No. No, on 1 West. Just, no, go back to the site plan, number 18.
The extension of 4.5 north.
Yeah.
Number
On the
18.
extension of 4.5 north, which would be on the north side of the project and the south side of the project. There's a bit of thought of maybe perimeter wall there to, so this development wouldn't be that visible. And I understand that with agriculture in the area, yeah, there's going to be noise, there's going to be odor, there's going to be dust, and that's something the people moving into this area will have to live with.
Mr. Fletcher, would you mind stepping up to the podium for a minute?
Yes.
That's just consideration of perhaps perimeter wall.
I don't think, for right now, for phase 1 and 2, I don't think they're going to be really affected by agriculture. Once they get into phase 3 and need submit a development plan for this, then we could start talking about buffering and walls.
What we've heard here tonight is some comments from the public concerning their ability to conduct business as normal with their agricultural needs. How can we address that?
And I can understand that. I can. I'm an agricultural person myself. And if you want a buffer wall on the north and south, or when that area is developed, like phase 2, I doubt we're in phase 2 for 3 to 5 years. I mean, phase 1's got to be filled up first.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want a wall there in phase 1 on the north side, and then before we build phase 2, we could put a wall on the south side, I have no problem with that. So if you want to make that a stipulation going forward, I'm welcome that.
I'm going to be facetious for a minute. Maybe in your contracts you can sign that farming smells bad, it's noisy, and it's enjoyable for the people that live there. Please be patient.
Yeah, I enjoy farming and all the different smells that go along with it. So I'll make them aware that there's farming in the area, and I hope to have a lot of the area that my neighbors are next to into green space where I left the irrigation. So I hope not to be very intrusive on that side anyways.
Just a comment for the folks that expressed a concern about not being able to conduct their agricultural business. You have that right by zoning. And yeah, you might get a complaint. That's something that nobody's can have any control over. But if you're AR5, then you got every right to do whatever AR5 zoning says you can do. And the folks that move here, there may be some folks from Iowa that love to see a farm next to their place and remind them of what they left behind.
Amen.
So, just as a comment, and I'm not guaranteeing you that you wouldn't have a problem with it, but that concern is legitimate. It's sort of like folks that build at the end of the runway at the airport. Planes fly over your home, and you got to deal with it.
Grew up in Phoenix, watched all the dairies get run out of the channel, and been there, seen it.
Well, we're hoping that with this development, Mr. Fletcher seems to be pretty conducive to barrier walls and that sort of thing, and I'm sure that will probably help.
I think get it all on the plan so everybody knows what they're looking at and what to expect.
I
Well,
think we can add them right to the stipulations, Bill, where we'll put the wall in before it's occupied. No, I
Well,
can completely.
Okay, folks, let's run it up this way. So I think we can address that. But just the comment I wanted to make was to reassure you that if you got AR5 zoning, you're going to be able to conduct business as AR5 zoning and not of subdivision lot. Why don't you step up to the podium for a second? Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. We'll be back to you.
And this is probably to Jim, but I'm just curious about what's going to happen with all the sewage? I mean, really, what, in layman's terms, I'm not an engineer for.
So the question is, how is he going to deal with the sewer?
Exactly.
Why don't we let him give us an overview of that?
There's county requirements on the nitrates that you can put into the soil, along with, like your single-family residence, you can only have so many units on your soil, and we're limited to that. At some point, we'll have to do a off-site sewer extension with a lift station because it doesn't gravity to the city sewer. It's down farther.
So if I could address your question for you. The county health department sets the limits on what can go in the ground as far as your effluent is concerned. And as part of the development process and also part of the review process, the town engineer and the building department and the county health department will be involved in setting up the parameters for this development as far as the effluent system is concerned. There'll be an engineer that will be hired to deal with that. I don't know if Granite Mountain is involved with that phase of it, but this is all things that will be tackled by ordinance and by building code requirements and also the county health department.
You know, and myself, like others, you know, and I hate to point a finger and say that somebody's going to be guilty of this, but these are unknowns. What if things aren't maintained I mean, that's a big deal.
It is, but it's all mandated by state law and county ordinances and the local city ordinances. You can't just run a septic system, a public sewage system, without oversight from a government entity.
So, one more question. So, am I to understand that they will be driving a truck in there pumping out the solids? Because that's got to go somewhere. Is that like a weekly thing, or?
Because the system probably hasn't been designed yet, that question can't be answered at this point.
But you understand where?
I do understand it. I'm in the building business, deal with it every day.
Okay.
Some systems are pumped and some are not. If they're maintained properly, there will be accommodations made to deal with all of that stuff. And that's the sort of thing that needs to be left up to the town engineer and the county health department and the engineer that's going to design the sewer system for the project.
One last comment, and I won't bother you anymore tonight, but I think that a project like this is well suited for an area like Orchard Creek. I think that was the name of it. I mean, that doesn't affect anybody, but it's just my comment.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'm going to close the public portion unless I already did that before. I'm kind of lost here for a moment. Does anybody have any comments for Alex? Or any comments in general for the...
For Alex, if we could, please, it says a neighborhood meeting was held on such and such a date, and it's a one-line thing, so us coming into it don't know if all these people were there, and the staff is well aware of how many people jumped up and said, get out of Dodge, or whether they said, oh, no, we love it. Can that be included on our notes going into the future?
Yes.
Let's save that part for at the end of the meeting for discussion items. Thank you, Alex. Okay.
I would just like to, I empathize with the farmer out there. On the other hand, we have to look at this from a perspective of property rights. Notwithstanding, this property already has the zoning. And we already had a previous development on it, and he just wants to change the type of the lots and the design. So he has certain property rights that are entitled at this point. So notwithstanding your comments, this is not the right area. Whatever was decided in the past when this was developed is in the past. We have to go with what we have today.
Anybody else?
I'd have to say I feel a little better about this development only because we have a developer who seems to want to get along with everybody. I am inclined to stay away from things like this because they are high density and because the housing is not what I consider permanent, but that's my personal opinion. So, but I would like you all to know that we take this stuff very seriously, and it's not something that we flippantly approve of. It is difficult at times to balance property owner rights and individuals' rights, but it is not something we can do to make everybody be a good neighbor. So that being said, we do take the heart of everybody's concerns seriously. And I don't want y'all to think that we don't. If you buy a house or get some property next to a farming operation, you need to expect that you're going to smell something. It's just the way it goes. We had similar cases in Tucson, which is very horse-oriented, and their entire community is built around this. And a man bought a large property in the center of this community and then started complaining about the smell of horse manure and horses walking down the street. That's his problem at this point. He bought there. So that's just my commentary on that.
Any other comments, questions? Claude?
Yeah, I'd just like to say something. I'm not only a member of the commission, but I'm a neighbor there too. I live just around the corner on 4.5. And when I bought my property 7 years ago, I was aware that this property had overlay zoning on it. So I had anticipated that at some point in time, we were going to have neighbors. When this proposition came up to put the adult park in here, I looked at not only the old zoning, but the new zoning and tried to determine whether we were doing, which direction we were going. Are we making it better or making it worse? And that was the reason I wrote the letter and I asked for the stipulations. I felt if we could upgrade this adult park into something like the villages at Lakes Creek or Orchard Farm, that we would have done something good for the community rather than something bad. The overlay zoning, it was already there as a fact. We can't get rid of that, and the owner always had the opportunity to go ahead and develop that. So I think what we have here with the stipulations that the owner has agreed to is a good deal for the neighborhood, as good as we can get.
Anybody else?
I just have one comment for staff, and this goes back to some of the other developments, PADs, that we've commented on and recommended forward to town council. I'm looking at this layout, and on North Road 1 West, is there any right-of-way that the town should be asking for as part of this? And I only ask that because I can't, I see that red line and I'm not too sure.
No, the problem is that we have a 25-foot utility easement for a large power line. And we cannot, if Road 1 West is going to be extended, you're going to have to buy property across the street in order to widen it. We're stuck with a 2-lane road.
I just wanted to know if there was some right-of-way we should be acquiring, we should get from the development, but that's been addressed. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
There was a gentleman.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed somebody. Would you please step up to the podium? Besides, the public portion is closed, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to speak.
Quick question, okay. I wasn't able to attend the neighborhood meeting. In the future, can't more than one meeting be held? What if somebody can't reach the one meeting?
That's something that I can't comment on at this point. I would suggest that maybe the town council might be the place to take that up.
Okay.
We don't have control of those things.
All right, I didn't know if you did or I just.
Nope.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
You always send the comments in writing.
All right. So I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Oh, speak into the mic too, would you?
All right. I'll
Don't
make a
forget-
motion.
Go ahead.
I recommend abandonment of the existing preliminary plat for assessor parcels 306-04-005X, 005Y, and 306-04-008J. And approve the development plan presented tonight for West Meadows Active Adult Community.
I would ask.
And forward to the town council with a recommendation of approval.
Don't forget the stipulations.
Yes.
With stipulations.
Right, and I want to list those stipulations very clearly here.
Mm-hmm.
You guys correct me if I'm get something upside down here. We'll have a community center with small meeting or craft meeting places or craft shops. The developer indicated, stepping outside of the motion, the developer indicated that was in phase 2, am I correct? Okay. Stepping back into the motion, the developer will provide at least one non-invasive tree for each rented unit. I suspect he'll probably exceed that. Developer will provide a community center, which we just said was going to be in Unit 2, and that we would like to see some sort of a connection between the two developments so that the community center is available to both phase 1 and phase 2. There will be outdoor picnic and seating areas. We'll want to see that on the plot map. And that we will have at one or the other or possibly both tennis court or swimming pool available at the community center. And that the development will be restricted to age 55 and older, and that a border fence on phase 1 and 2 be included in the plat. Did I miss anything?
Could we amend that to wall?
Fence or wall, a block wall.
Yes.
Anything else? Okay, as long as those stipulations are in the motion, okay, then I'm going to ask for a second.
A second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other words to be added? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. All right.
Well, I do believe I have some very pissed off neighbors.
Moving on to item 7, non-public action hearing items. That might be a time for you to bring up your...
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Alex, we get the results that you had a community meeting, but it doesn't say anything about 13 people showed up, 12 wanted to hang you in effigy, 1 wanted to leave, you know. Could we get that included a little bit on there?
So during the town council meeting, during the presentation, again, I will mention that anytime somebody, anybody in the neighborhood, within the community is opposed, either here in P&Z or during neighborhood meeting, I will bring it up. Or
I'd like
I do
to
bring
have
it
just
up.
a little advanced warning without me having to go to a town council meeting to hear about it.
Well, I think what he's trying to say is the public portion, the public comments, when we get our zoning packets, it would be nice to know what the public comments were.
Oh, okay, yeah, definitely.
Right,
And
did I get that right?
That's correct,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
I may have
I-
said it wrong, but.
Yeah.
Just being, that would be helpful for us.
Yeah, definitely. I will include that next time in the staff report.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, I'm going to close that portion. Any discussion items? Okay, public comments. This is the opportunity for the public to speak for 3 minutes on anything that is not on the agenda tonight. Please step up to the podium and state your name.
Dave Vinson. Most of the people that are in the front row here were expecting to talk about a zoning request from Robert Galloway that we were here back on May 3rd as a public hearing for, and we were under the impression that that was going to be discussed this evening.
If it's not on the agenda, we
didn't
can't
know-
talk
we didn't
about
have
it.
the agenda. Does anybody know
The
when it's
agenda is,
actually-
the agenda is published, is it not?
Okay.
So,
It was posted on the site for tonight, in a yellow post.
okay, and that's something that we don't have control over because we only have the agenda that's presented to us when we come to the meeting.
Can I answer?
Yes, sir. Please, it'll probably help us get home.
Yeah.
Sir, you
We
said.
all sat here waiting for this.
Sorry, folks.
Oh, wow.
Sir, you said it was posted on site. Did you see the dates on it?
Yeah, it was for today.
It was for today?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, folks.
So let me give you an update for Galloway. Galloway is right now, he needs to fix a lot of stuff before he comes within the P&Z. He needs to submit a replat plan. Anytime somebody within a subdivision is gonna modify the plat, he needs to submit a replat plan. That needs to be approved by engineer. There's a lot of issues with drainage, as discussed in the neighborhood meeting. Those all need to be discussed.
Okay, we were under the impression
Yeah.
that it had already taken place, and that's why we all showed up to talk about the official.
So, yeah, and I apologize about that sign should have been taken off. Yeah.
So, to the best of your knowledge, there's no future plans for this to be discussed here anytime soon?
No, and when there is a date, what I'll do tomorrow is I'll make sure that those signs are taken down. When you see a new sign on site, it'll have the new date on it. As far as notification for public hearing, no letters will be sent again, but it'll be posted again on site and in the Sunday newspaper.
So there'll be another public hearing before an official hearing, or is it gonna come straight to an official hearing?
So he's done with the neighborhood meeting portion of it. Next step will be P&Z, town council, yeah.
Sorry, for the interruption.
No problem. That's what the public comment thing is for.
We all hung out for 2 hours to talk about this.
Sorry, folks, I was wondering why during the public comment, nobody at the front row got it. Okay, just as an aside, Ruth Mayday has moved on to a different job. We're sad that she's moved on. She's really good at what she did. And Alex, who just barely joined the town staff less than a month ago, has been thrown to the wolves to survive. And I want to compliment him on his coolness under pressure and also for preparation of this meeting. And so when he had a mix-up there, that's probably one of the things that fell through the cracks while he was trying to keep his head above water.
It's all good, we're all human, it's all good.
Yep.
Let's blame Ruth.
No, we won't blame Ruth because sort of wish she was still with us.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'll move.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Commission, for a good job tonight.
Okay, folks.
What's that?
Who moved to adjourn, please?
What's that?
Who moved to adjourn?